The flower communion is a unique part of Unitarian Universalism. And I want to tell you a little bit about the history of it. It actually comes to us from Czechoslovakia, or what is now the Czech Republic. And it comes specifically from Prague. And it was created by the Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek, who founded the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. And he introduced a special service on June 4th, 1923. That means next year will be the 100th anniversary of the first flower communion. And June 4th next year is a Sunday. So that's going to be, already myself and some of my colleagues are trying to plot something special for the 100th anniversary of the flower communion next year. So come back in a year's time. Now, Norbert Čapek met his Czech-born wife, Maya Oktavek, I may be pronouncing her name, in New York City, while he was studying for his PhD. And it was her urging that Dr. Čapek left his Baptist church and became a Unitarian. And the Čapeks returned to Czechoslovakia in 1921 and established this dynamic liberal church in Prague. By the time of 1941, it had 3,200 members. Can you imagine a church of 3,200 members? That's bigger than any of our congregations right now. And Maya Čapek, she was ordained in 1926. And when the Čapeks first started the church, Norbert felt that he needed something symbolic that would bind people closer together. And he wanted a format that wouldn't alienate the many of the former Catholic members in his church. So the idea of the Christian communion with wine and bread didn't really work for him. So he turned to the beauty of nature, the beauty of the countryside. And he brought those elements of the communion because he thought that would be genuine to his congregation. And this simple service, the flower communion or the flower ceremony, as he referred to it, was the result. And it was such a success that he held it every year before the summer recess of his church, the summer recess, as we are doing as we begin to move into the summer, as school ends, as the church year winds down in the month of June. And the flower communion was brought to the United States in 1940 by Norbert's wife, Maya. And during her tour of the United States, she introduced the first flower communion in the United States to the Unitarian Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, Maya was not able to return to Czechoslovakia due to the outbreak of the Second World War. It was not until the war was over that she found out about Norbert Čapek's death in the Nazi concentration camp of Dachau. He had resisted the Nazis in many ways, including sheltering Jews and other refugees. So let us take a moment now in silence to honor the resistance and compassion of Norbert Čapek and those like him who resisted the totalitarian fascism of the Nazis. Despite the sadness of how Norbert Čapek died, and that reminder of him, he wanted to bring beauty into this world through ceremonies, through religion, and through communions like the flower communion. And from its beginning in 1940 in the US, it spread throughout most of our Unitarian Universalist churches. And there's not many things that spread to most of our Unitarian Universalist churches. So you were all asked to bring a flower of your choice. It can be from your gardens, your neighbour's garden, the roadside, somewhere special to you, or even your favourite grocery store. Mm-hmm. The flower you brought symbolises the gifts that each of us brings to religious community and how we come here by our own free will. The flower you will receive later symbolises the gifts each of us receives from this religious community. This symbolizes the gifts of grace we receive regularly from one another and from this religious community, and also the gifts each of us gives to one another in this religious community. I'd like to read the words by Reverend Thomas Rhodes. And let's think about this as we look at the flowers, look at the faces around us, look at the flowers in Zoom, and look at the faces in Zoom. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches. Some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some spread ourselves out wide. Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. Some of us are still in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground. Not me. And some of us stretch towards the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes. Some of us carry seeds sometimes. Some of us are prickly most of the time. Some of us smell. And all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are. Communion. Communion is the bond that unites us with one another and with the divine as each of us understand it. Communion is an act of radical interdependence. And the significance of the flower communion is that no two flowers are alike, just as no two people are alike. Yet each of us contribute to make this religious community the beautiful bouquet it is. Our common bouquet would not be the same without the contributions of every one of us here today. No one of us could have created this by ourselves, even given the same ingredients. Thus, this service is a statement of the richness, the diversity, and the beauty of our community. By exchanging flowers later, we will symbolically show our willingness to walk together in our search for meaning, disregarding all that might divide us. Each person gives and receives a flower, thus symbolizing our shared celebration in community. The communion of sharing is essential to a healthy religious community and to free people in a free religion. And I invite you to join me in prayer. This is the words of consecration that Dr. Norbert Čapek gave during the flower communion in Prague in the 1920s and 30s. And consecration means a dedication to a deity or dedication to higher ideals. These are the words of Dr. Norbert Čapek. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessings on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendships as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship. But may we realize whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. Amen. Well, it's time for all ages. This story doesn't quite come from the Czech Republic, but it does come from Transylvania, which is a Hungarian-speaking part of Romania. So it's in the same region of the world. And this comes from long, long ago, from the Unitarian through the church in Transylvania. And at this time, this was a time before electricity. And this village was Unitarian, and they wanted to build a church, and they wanted to build a church up in the hill. And they wanted to build this church kind of overlooking the village as a kind of protecting it. This religious community was going to protect the people there. And so they carved these big stone blocks, and they put in windows, and they put in a wooden roof, much like we have here in the church there. And then they put these insets into the wall for the lights, for the lamps that we're bringing. And they had the church ready, and they were going to have a big celebration that evening. But then, everyone left to go back for dinner. But this one father and his daughter, Maya, stayed behind. And they had some bread and cheese, and they were looking at the work. And Maya, this young woman, just thought this was the most beautiful building she'd ever seen. She was so excited. She was able to run around the sanctuary because no one else was there. And then she realized, Dad, I'm worried because we're going to come back at night and there's no lights in the sanctuary. And the father said, watch. So he took her outside, and the sun was setting. And then all of a sudden she saw these trails of lights winding its way up the hill, people coming out their houses carrying lanterns. And they walked up and said, but what about our lamp? We don't have. He said, your mother's bringing our lamp. And so the lamps all came up, and everyone's lamp was a little bit different because each family would make their own lamp in their own style. But the light, they all brought light into it, and they would put it up. Each family had a place to put the light up and set into the wall. And Maya looked around and she said, even now, with all this light there, we can see the beauty. She could see the faces of her neighbours, her friends in the congregation. And then at the end of the service, they got the lantern and they all walked home, and they would put the lantern on the table in the dining room. And the mother said to her, you see, Maya, we bring the light in and create religious community, but we also take that light with us as we leave. And we always have that light with us. And when you have your own family, we'll make more lanterns so they can have a light. But that light that you take from the religious community never needs to go out. I like to think about that idea of that light that we bring to the community. And when we leave here, as we leave with the flower at the end of the flower communion, we take that with us. I want you to reflect, what do you want to take with you as you leave this community today? You will take a flower, but what does that symbolize? Does that symbolize the beauty you found here? Does that symbolize the resilience that you've found in this community over the last 2 years during the pandemic? And think about what light you want to bring with you into this community. So thank you very much for listening.
My reflection's really short, I promise. Many years ago, when my husband and I were early in our relationship, I asked him if he thought I was beautiful. His answer to me was, "You are beautiful to me." Well, at the time, I didn't like that answer very much. Beautiful to you? Okay, great, but I want to be beautiful to everyone. Well, of course, Rob walked that back pretty quickly. But thinking back on that now, what more could I want than to be seen as beautiful to the person that I love? As the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I find the more I love someone, the more beautiful they become to me. I see their beauty with my heart. At that moment, Rob's heart was seeing me with love. How could I ask for more than that? Looking around the fellowship today, I see so much beauty in the flowers that we all brought to the service, each one a different form, a different shape, a different scent, and each one beautiful in its own way. I also see the beauty in all of you. Each one of you a different form, a different shape, a different scent. Okay, we won't go there. You bring your full selves here today to share your love in this space. I feel your love, and I see you all with my heart. You are beautiful to me. Thank you.
Now I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. This is also a prayer by Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek, which he used for his flower communion in Czechoslovakia. In the name of providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree, and in the hearts of men and women the longing for people to live and love. In the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister, what they are. In the name of the sages and the great religious leaders who sacrificed their life to hasten the coming of peace and justice, let us renew our resolution sincerely to be real brothers and real sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from one another. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. Those are the words of Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek. We're now to complete the flower union by beginning the ceremony of receiving the flowers. So please take a look at this beautiful bouquet we created that's been with us throughout this service. It's not going to remain like this much longer. But first, I'd like to show you, I have a quick slides of flowers that were sent to me, photographs of flowers from those who were online. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who sent photographs to me. So. We're now going to have the act of receiving the gifts from this community. And I want you to pay careful attention, because I think this might be different how you've done the flower communion in the past. So again, I'd like the back rows to come forward first, and I'd like, come down the side aisles, pick a flower, and then meet the person from the opposite side in the middle and exchange flowers. So you're going to receive a flower that was brought by someone else, who's selected from you by someone else, and given to you. That is radical interdependence. And that's what our religious community is about. And this symbolizes the many gifts we receive in this community. These gifts that we maybe don't often ask for, but we receive from this community through the hands, the hearts, and heads of many people in our congregation. That is grace. That is the gift of grace that we receive in this religious community, and that each of us brings, be it by a flower, be it through teaching religious education, as we just appreciated the teachers, through the tech team who have been working overtime for this service, so thank you, tech team. We all bring things, Lizzie's reflection, Larry and Dawn and the choir with their music.